outside the establishment box. That was obvious Sunday night. If you learned something, let me know. Bill@BillO'Reilly.com. I'm Bill O'Reilly. I approve the message by writing it. You can reach me, Bill@BillO'Reilly.com, Bill@BillO'Reilly.com. Name and town if you wish to opine. The Mail, Ronald Novison, Claremont, Florida. Bill, Senator Schumer and Democrats have clearly demonstrated what can happen when you depend on the government for your existence. When they have power, they can take it away. This is the reality of socialism. That's right. The government has power over you. You're screwed. James, on the message board. James is a premium member. I don't know if it's a good idea to get rid of the filibuster like President Trump is suggesting. It's not. Because if the Republicans get rid of the filibuster, if the Democrats take over the Senate, they'll pack the Supreme Court. They'll pass all kinds of crazy far left laws. Not a good idea. Mike Dancona, New Tripoli, Pennsylvania. I'm a bit confused. Who exactly does the United States owe $38 trillion to? Well, to people who buy savings bonds, U.S. securities. There's a variety of ways you can invest in the United States of America. People all over the world do it because we've always paid off. If we don't pay off, our economy is over. And then there's unfunded liabilities. That means that we borrowed the money and we say, we'll pay it back in 5 years, but we don't have the money to pay it back. Very dicey out there. Mike, good question. Teresa Tierney of Bloomington, Minnesota. Would you think the increase in food stamps over the past 4 years is due to supply and demand? America is feeding 16 to 20 million more people because of illegal immigration. Demand has to be up. That's not it. It's easier to get on the entitlement train now. That's it. Made it very easy to get free stuff. In a moment, something you might not know. Imagine getting your medication from a pharmacy that actually makes your life easier. No more tracking down a doctor or waiting in line. All Family Pharmacy handles it all for you. Consultations, prescriptions, fulfillment, and shipping. As we head into the holidays, fall allergies, sinus infections, cold and flu are all around us. Now's the time to stay ahead. All Family Pharmacy is by your side, helping you prepare with your meds for the entire family. From antibiotics to antivirals and ivermectin to blood pressure meds and more. Whether it's for daily use, emergencies, or trusted off-label options, they make it simple. Licensed doctors review every order for safety, and everything ships right to your door. So please visit allfamilypharmacy.com/Bill. Use code Bill10 to save 10%. Again, that's allfamilypharmacy.com/Bill, code Bill10.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you.
800-439-7851. 800-439-7851. 800-439-7851. That's 800-439-7851.
Now the O'Reilly Update brings you something you might not know. 46 years ago today, more than 60 Americans were taken prisoner at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. The standoff lasted for a staggering 444 days, demoralized the entire country, and destroyed the presidency of Jimmy Carter. Here's the story of the Iranian hostage crisis. President Carter was sworn into office January 1977. 4 months after that, the nation plunged into an energy crisis. There were gas lines. The world descended into chaos. Islamic fundamentalists, under the command of the Ayatollah Khomeini, seized control of Iran. On November 4th, 1979, a group of radical students ransacked the U.S. Embassy, taking 66 hostages. 14 were immediately released, mostly because they were either African American or dual citizens with Iran. But 52 Americans, including 9 Marines, remained in captivity. Back in Washington, President Carter didn't know what to do. Under intense pressure from the public, Carter finally authorized Operation Eagle Claw, a mission to rescue the hostages using 8 U.S. helicopters. Eagle Claw was a total disaster. 2 choppers failed to take off. Another was deemed unfit for service. 1 helicopter collided with a cargo plane, killing 8 Americans. Carter had to abort the mission. After the botched operation, the hostages were scattered around Iran to thwart any further rescue attempts. Back home, Jimmy Carter's presidency was in ruins. After taking office, the Democrats' approval rating was about 77%. 4 years later, it had fallen to 28%. In November 1980, the nation elected Ronald Reagan in a landslide. The Republican won 44 states, 51% of the popular vote, and an electoral count of 489 to just 44 for Carter. And here's something else you might not know. The Iranian crisis finally ended on January 20th, 1981. The hostages were released minutes after President Reagan was sworn into office. For more fascinating stories about the Ayatollah Khomeini and his bloody rise to power, please check out my best-selling book, Confronting Evil. Back in a moment. Here's a bulletin for American homeowners. The FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud called title theft, and your equity is the target. With just a forged signature, your ownership can be transferred out of your name. Without protection in place, you are left with an emotional and financial nightmare. That's why I partner with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim and protect yourself. Use promo code BILL at HomeTitleLock.com to get a free title history report, plus a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if you're a victim of fraud, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. So don't be a victim. Protect your equity today. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code BILL. Thank you for listening to the O'Reilly Update. I am Bill O'Reilly. No spin, just facts, and always looking out for you.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNDS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. It's now the longest government shutdown ever.
On this vote, the yeas are 54, the nays are 44. 3/5 of the Senate duly chosen and sworn in, not having voted in the affirmative, the motion is not agreed to.
The Senate has failed for a 14th time to reopen the government. Senators from both parties are quietly negotiating the contours of an emerging deal to reopen the government and resolve the stalemate over health care funds for insurance subsidies. President Trump has largely been absent. He threatened Tuesday no more SNAP food aid unless the government reopens, but his spokeswoman said the administration is releasing the funds in line with court orders. Virginians head to the polls this election day, wrapping up a tumultuous state campaign season. While routine policies of taxes, public safety, and education are on the ballot, conservatives say a more insidious issue is also at stake. Correspondent Anne-Marie Morgan has more.
The season was marred by praise for Charlie Kirk's murder, violent texting, arrests for threats to lawmakers, and opposing Turning Point clubs, all aimed at conservatives. The Family Foundation's Victoria Cobb warns of intimidation tactics.
That's the cost of losing. That's why it's so important that we win. In every single tiny place that a leftist has power, We see them use every ounce of it to advance extremism while shutting down all competing viewpoints.
She says wise voting is essential. Anne Marie Morgan reporting.
New Jersey voters are electing their next governor in a race that will reveal whether Democrats still have a grip on a state that's been reliably blue in recent years, but has shown signs of shifting toward Republicans. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The national debt is soaring and the dollar is weakening. Rising deficits and market instability are creating a perfect storm of economic uncertainty. In unpredictable times, more people are turning to physical gold and silver, real tangible assets that have protected wealth for centuries, as a way to safeguard their savings and retirement.
And now, with the Fed preparing another rate cut, precious metals are poised for dramatic gains in the coming weeks.
At Advantage Gold, we help you move your IRA or eligible 401k into physical precious metals, tax-free and penalty-free. When you call 800-741-GOLD, you'll receive a free gold guide packed with real-world strategies to help protect your investments. Call 800-741-GOLD or visit AdvantageGold.com. Call 800-741-4653. Consult with your financial and tax professionals before making investment decisions. Call 800-741-GOLD.
From the Michael's Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Not as chilly tonight, low down to 55 degrees, so a little milder in the morning and a mild afternoon. Sunny skies and a high of 69. Little breeze out of the northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Turns cooler in the evening. Temperatures will drop into the 50s pretty quickly Wednesday evening, and it's a little cooler but closer to normal for Thursday. Still mostly sunny, a low of 42 in the morning Thursday and a high of 64. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
Hey, it's Susie Moore. If new flooring makes you think hassle, think again, because Michael's Flooring is changing the game. For over 30 years, Michael's has been locally owned and trusted for quality, variety, and amazing service. Whether it's carpet, hardwood, laminate, luxury vinyl, or ceramic tile, their expert team makes installing new floors exciting, not stressful. That's why customers keep coming back. Visit Michael's Flooring at St. Peter's, Starting Prairie, Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloored.com. That's igotfloored.com.
Yo, this is Vic. Vic for Vets is proudly honoring our veterans. Every Wednesday at 11:05, you'll hear about that day's honoree and their incredible service to our country.
Hi, it's Ken. You want to nominate a veteran? Send their name, service information, and story to me, Ken, at newstalkstl.com.
Brought to you by Alamo Military Collectibles and Monocle's Pizza.
Together, let's celebrate the heroes in our community. Vic for Vets, where honor meets gratitude.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Wherever I'm at, home, car, wherever.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
If you have a phone, you have a radio. Just the convenience on the phone.
Streaming live on the mobile app.
Love the new app.
And listen anytime.
Everywhere.
Anywhere. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
If the Senate passes something, of course, we'll come back. We're running out of clock. Obviously, we put 7 weeks on the clock. That was remember, the bipartisan arrangement that was made between Democrats and Republicans in the House and the Senate, in consultation with the Senate, bipartisan bicameral agreement that they needed 7 more weeks on the clock. because once we got to the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, there would be that much more time needed, they estimated, to finish the government funding appropriations process. The Democrats have played games, and we've lost so many of those days now. So if they extend it, obviously that logically makes sense to us. I am not a fan of extending it to December because, let's be frank, a lot of people around here have PTSD about Christmas omnibus spending bills. We don't want to do that.
Tell you what, whatever you think about him, good, bad, or ugly, Mike Johnson has been an excellent communicator throughout the Schumer shutdown, as the Schumer shutdown will become part and parcel with this shutdown itself, because Chuck Schumer's about to set the record. Chris, I guess he and the liberal left will be proud of this once they break it at midnight tonight.
Yeah, it's tied right now. If it goes into Tuesday, which it should, they will set a new record. But there is a thaw between the Democrats and Republicans on this government shutdown. It was reported today that there are Senate Democrats are warming up to John Thune's offer to open the government and then hold a vote by a date certain. And that's what the Democrats want, on renewing the extending the Obamacare subsidies. You've got a bunch of backbencher senators, Katie Britt, Janine Shaheen, Susan Collins, Maggie Hassan, and Mike Rounds, kind of a bipartisan coalition there that have been meeting to try to open the government. I think after this election, after the Democrats have a pretty good night tonight, which is assumed, they will say that it's time to reopen the government, will declare victory. So I expect the government to be reopened by the end of the year, and all the tea leaves, according to the reports, are saying that.
A 36-day shutdown where the Democrats end up pretty much getting absolutely nothing other than Chuck Schumer being able to protect his leftist flank, even though he, at the very last minute, did not endorse Mondami. So Chuck Schumer, very afraid of AOC, but not afraid of her enough, I guess, to endorse Mondami the commie, as New Yorkers go to the polls today to decide who's going to run one of the largest cities, one of the most important cities, the financial capital of the United States of America, well, at least for now, on Election Day. And we're watching, of course, the elections in Pennsylvania and Virginia and New Jersey as well.
And there's an important election in Maine as well. They have a ballot initiative that will require Maine voters to have to show an ID at the polls. That Pennsylvania race, that Pennsylvania election that you mentioned, that is for control of the state Supreme Court. Currently, it is 3-2. Democrats control that. 3 of the Supreme Court justices are up for election. Republicans are feeling pretty hopeful that they can win a couple of those seats and tilt that back to the Republican side. And, of course, we have the California redistricting amendment, which should add 4 to 5 seats to the Democrats' column. The polls are looking as that is going to pass, and it puts a lot of sails in the presidential momentum for Newsom for 2028 to pull that off.
I'm curious to know how they put that voter, is it a photo ID provision up, and how did that end up on their ballot? Do they have the initiative petition process there?
They do, and I think that's probably how it probably happened. I'm not too well versed on that. I know that we tried to do a constitutional amendment up in Maine back in 2021, I think it was during the pandemic. And I think we used the initiative petition process there as well. So,
well, that would be one. Usually the photo ID provisions are 70 to 80% issues, even in blue states. And it's very difficult. Usually the blue states prevent those from going before the voters. So I'm happy to hear that Maine might actually do this, because that would be wonderful to have a photo voter ID provision in a generally purple state. That can save Maine from itself generally moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that bodes well for Americans for Citizen Voting to go back up there and possibly pass a constitutional amendment this time. We failed to get that done a few years ago, but looks like there's a possibility of that.
Yeah. So we probably will not have, even though East Coast polls may be closing right around the time we wrap up the show, we likely won't have any results for you today, but I know that coming out of the gates tomorrow morning at 5:30, Mike Ferguson, Susie Moore, and Jerome will be unpacking everything that happens. And then we'll, of course, continue to do that throughout the day. We'll have a lot to look at and analyze. and try to see if there's any tea leaf reading as we head towards the next big election, which will be the midterms of 2026.
Yeah, if the polls are any indication, that race in New York City is going to be one of those races they call about 10 or 15 minutes after the polls close, which will be about 6:15 our time. So we will be off the air, but I expect that race to be called pretty early.
Mm-hmm. And it also shows that New York race, unless Mondami gets more than 50% of the vote, let's say he gets less than 50% of the vote, then you will have more voters voting against him than for him, because Cuomo has been polling in the upper 30s, low 40s, and Curtis Sliwa has been getting around 14 to 18%. And this shows the danger of splitting the vote, especially when you have a really, really bad character on one side, and then you split the vote on the other side between more sane forces. You just allow someone like Mondami to run up the middle and capture the prize.
Yeah, as I've been saying for the past few weeks, New Yorkers really didn't have much of a choice. They had Eric Adams, who has a cloud over his head regarding his time as mayor. You've got Andrew Cuomo, of course, had the sexual harassment scandal, and his poor performance during COVID has hurt him. And then you have Curtis Sliwa, who we all like. He's a Republican. Remember when the Guardian Angels were here in St. Louis in the early 90s or 80s, I think it was. But he's a Republican in a city that is overwhelmingly Democrat. So he really doesn't have much of a chance. And so Mondami, 34 years old, good-looking man, talking about free everything. That is appealing, especially to the younger progressive voters. And the early voting shows that in the boroughs where a lot of young people live, the turnout was tremendous. I think it's a record. 750,000 people early voted. So I think Mondami's going to have a good night tonight, unfortunately.
And the irony of all of this, as we discussed yesterday, was that Mondami is running on the affordability crisis that is affecting so many Americans. And you would think that in a calm, rational world, voters would sit here and go, who created that affordability crisis? It would be the Democrats. And I think voters would also ask themselves, what has the government ever gotten involved in? An industry, a sector, an item in this country where the government's gotten involved and then that thing has become more affordable. It's never happened.
Yeah, in his latest campaign commercial that I saw today, he is saying that he is not a communist. He's not going to confiscate anyone's wealth except for the 1%. The 1% there in New York City are going to pay for all of his programs, the free fast bus care, the free government-controlled grocery stores, all the other things that he is advocating for. The 1% in New York City are going to pay for that.
Assuming the 1% stick around to have their ox gored, or if they continue to move to the 6th borough, which is known as Miami, Florida. And we have seen over 2.5 million people leave New York in the last 10 years. And I have a feeling that out-migration will only continue to accelerate. Florida leapfrogged New York a year or two ago as being the second most populous state. It had been California, New York, Florida. Now it's California.
Texas is in there too.
And then Texas was usually 4th. And now it's California, Florida, New York, as far as populated states.
And one thing that New York needs to be concerned about, of course, New York is the financial capital of the United States and really you could say the world. But Dallas, Texas has opened their own stock exchange, and there have been a lot of heavy hitters that are investing in that. So over the course of 10, 20 years, you could see Wall Street being transitioned to the Southwest in Texas. You're beginning to see the seeds of that being planted.
I don't doubt it. There was a story yesterday I didn't quite get to. Then we ran out of time that suggested just that. Many of the big banks, JP Morgan, Chase, Citi, they are already buying land and campuses in other more friendly reddish states around the country in the expectation that Mondami is elected and begins to implement some of these horrific plans that he has discussed.
Yeah, Texas is poised to be a New York City of the South.
Mm-hmm. In local news, we've got elections here as well. If you're watching us on any of our streaming platforms, we stream on 5 platforms every single day. Not only does the Tim Jones Chris Arps Show do that, but all of our programming does that here at News Talk STL. We are on Rumble and Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram. I have my I voted sticker on. You're like, why did you vote today? Did you run over to the Big Apple? Nope. We have elections here in certain parts of Missouri. There are some off-year, off-cycle elections, specifically courtesy of our favorite taxing jurisdictions over at the failed public education system, the Rockwood School District, a massive tax increase proposal. And Chris, this was fascinating. I've never had this happen before. So every time I go vote in a local election, usually in April, right? April is when most of the local elections occur, right? And there's usually a multitude of things on the April ballot, like city council seats. Sometimes there's tax issues or bond issues, very different, just different types of local, regional questions. And there's hardly ever any sort of a line at all. This is an off-year, off-cycle election in November. There's one question on the ballot where I went and voted today. There was a line out the door.
What time was that?
2 p.m.
Oh, well,
middle of
big.
the afternoon.
That's huge because
And-
it's usually morning and after people get off work.
I
you
was
see the
shocked,
lines.
and I don't know if I should feel good about this or terrified about this. I'm just trying to put in my mind. Okay. Rockwood School District voters, West St. Louis County. Is there a line out the door because people cannot wait to go raise their taxes? Or are they going there to vote against a tax increase? I'm not sure. We're going to have to wait and see.
Yesterday,
tomorrow.
you had a couple of pieces from the pro tax people. Have you seen any anti-tax literature about?
Yes.
I think that would be a good indication.
There was some. There was a grassroots movement set up by the folks at Mo Tax Relief Now, by the Gateway Conservatives. My old friend, Speaker Rod Jetton, who now lives in this area, was one of the consultants for that effort. Representative Ben Keithley was knocking doors in Chesterfield, literally, to ask people to vote no on Prop S, along with some other legislators. So there was a grassroots effort, definitely outspent, outfunded, and probably outworked by the education establishment. But we'll see. I spoke to a fella from Jefferson County this weekend, and he said the Fox School District had a big tax increase proposal a year ago. He said there was some opposition to that. It went down 2-1. It was roundly rejected by the voters. I don't know. The other side of the coin is people are saying we need to pay the teachers more, blah, blah, blah. Rockwood in the last 10 years has lost over 2,500 students, but it has increased its bureaucracy 3 to 4 times. So we'll see which story the voters agreed with.
And before we leave this segment, we've got to talk about the passing of former Vice President and Defense Secretary back in the day, Dick Cheney. He died last night at 84 years of age. And we were talking before the show. I was surprised that he really lived this long because he's had heart problems since he was 38 years old when he was chief of staff for Gerald Ford. Love him, hate him. He's going to go down as one of the most powerful vice presidents ever, and probably one of the most controversial vice presidents we've ever had in a long time. And whatever you think of him, I think it's always proper to at least send condolences to someone's family on the loss of their father, son, father, grandfather, husband. So send my condolences out to Dick Cheney and his family for him passing last night.
An impactful and controversial figure.
Most definitely.
Indeed. David Stokes going to join us at 4:25 to talk about many of those local and regional issues that we were just discussing, including the fact that there is a $23 million Chesterfield headquarters for a manufacturer who's seeking county. Here we go with the subsidies again. And there is flood concerns being renewed regarding homes planned along the Merrimack River. We'll talk to David Stokes about that at 4:25. 4:45, we'll have Chris's Corner, of course.
Yeah, last week was Halloween, of course, and Lauren Boebert had what some are saying is a controversial costume on, and we're going to ask, was it trick or treat or trick or trouble at 4:45? Lauren Boebert, Congresswoman from Colorado, and her Halloween suit or costume.
Indeed. At 5:07, the Speaker's stump speech, despite the pomp and the partying that the left is likely going to engage in because of the expected election results from these largely blue areas in our country today. New report out, a major report out from Semaphore, talking about the fact that left-wing ideas have largely wrecked the Democrats' brand. I'll dig into some of those at 5:07. At 5:25, we're going to have Gary Hollis back with us. He is the state director for Americans Prosperity Missouri. They're looking forward to the 2026 legislative session, looking at passing reforms in the areas of personal property and income tax reduction and the REINS Act, REINS, something that almost got across the finish line last year that is on the regulatory front, and I know they're going to probably make another run at again this year. So Gary will join the show once again at 5:25, and at 5:45, Chris will have some additional items for us to banter about. What might some of those be?
We know the Paramount, of course, has been bought by conservatives of the Oracle family, Larry and Dave Ellis, father and son. And they and Paramount are throwing a bone to the left. And so I'll tell you what that is all about at 4:40 or 5:45, excuse me, at the end of the show.
And then we will prepare you for Larry Connor's USA. Hey, happy Election Day. If you're in any of those jurisdictions that have something on the ballot today, you will have until 7 p.m. to vote. Make sure you exercise that right to vote and have your personal voice be heard. We'll talk to David Stokes about all of those issues and more when we return on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. This is 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Not as chilly tonight, low down to 55 degrees, so a little milder in the morning. And a mild afternoon, sunny skies and a high of 69. Little breeze out of the northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Turns cooler in the evening. Temperatures will drop into the 50s pretty quickly Wednesday evening. And it's a little cooler, but closer to normal for Thursday. Still mostly sunny, a low of 42 in the morning Thursday and a high of 64. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Free speech is alive and well in America right here.
It's about time somebody stood up for true American values.
What this country needs is some backbone.
Finally, a president who wants to make real change.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Fall is here, winter is approaching, and you know daylight saving is not my favorite time of the year because it gets dark, but you're not probably also not thinking about having your windows cleaned, but you should. You know, my wife, back over the summer, we had our windows cleaned by STL Windows and Doors, new window cleaning service, and the results were incredible. This isn't your average spray and wipe job. They use triple filtered, ultra pure water that's so clean you can't even drink it. Why? Because it pulls out minerals that normally cause streaks and spots. The result? Crystal clear windows, guaranteed streak free. They handle both residential and commercial jobs up to 2 stories. For an average home, the team takes about 4 to 6 hours, and they just don't clean the glass. They also clean and inspect your screens. They'll even rescreen if needed. We had a couple of our screens redone. You can even get on a regular schedule. Most homeowners do twice a year to keep their windows looking brand new. And of course, STL Windows and Doors is still the trusted family-owned company for new windows and door installations here in the St. Louis metro area. Call today for your free estimate at 314-277-5952 or visit stlwindowsanddoors.com, stlwindowsanddoors.com. STL Windows and Doors, the preferred choice for installation and window cleaning in St. Louis.
Jamie Allman here, tossing and turning over retirement worries. You're not alone. 3 out of 4 Americans share your concern about having enough saved. But here's the thing. A comfortable retirement isn't out of reach, even if you're planning for 30 or 40 years ahead. Every day, Jeff Portman from the Gemini Wealth Group helps people avoid the critical mistakes that can derail their retirement. Build your path to financial confidence. Visit GeminiWealthGroup.com or call Jeff directly at 314-888-0123.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA SIPC.
Tom Shaw Realtors has been helping sell, buy, lease property all over Missouri for almost 100 years. Call him 636-532-1922 or visit shawrealtors.com.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Well, there's a wide variety of issues on each one of the ballots, and there's 44 different polling locations here in St. Louis County that are available for voters. Now, we told you about in our previous coverage about the propositions up for vote, including in the Rockwood and Melville school districts. In other races like Bell Fountain, Neighbors, voters will decide on an additional 3% sales tax on retail marijuana sales, and multiple counties like Madison, Iron, Jefferson, and Crawford will decide on funding 911 communication services, combining utilities, and several other local sales tax questions.
427 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show. It's Tuesday. It's election day, and a great time to have David Stokes on with us.
David Stokes over at the Show Me Institute. In high school, you talk about spike. I had a very short spike. It was
I knew there's a spike somewhere in that stuff.
It wasn't very punky. It was more Leave It to Beaver-ish, maybe.
David Stokes, Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute, joins us today. David, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling vindicated from some of the reports I'm getting from polling places here, and the like. Vindicated in a way I wish I wasn't.
All right, well, let's get into that. There are, of course, several Missouri cities, including Ladue, Creve Coeur, and Festus, that are having elections today. They are asking voters to approve local use taxes. What are those taxes, Dave, and are they good or are they bad?
Well, I'm not a big lover of new taxes, of course, but the use taxes, for Ladue, Festus, and Creve Coeur, as you said, there's a strong argument for them. These are the sales taxes imposed on the items you have delivered to your house, that you buy online.
Ooh.
And well, I think there's probably more erroneous taxation of this, and I think a lot of people are probably being taxed for it, even if you haven't passed it. That's what in Ladue, Creve Coeur, and Festus, you don't have that municipal sales tax right now. So, you're sort of leveling the playing field between brick and mortar businesses and online sales. You're expanding your tax base, which is always a good thing. That's the best argument for it. And that's up to the voters. Of course, the voters in many of these cities have already said no. Frequently, use taxes don't pass until they're put before the voters 2 or 3 times, each time, of course, being a more obscure election date than the prior one in order to get the voters you want to pass it at the polls.
Yeah, David, isn't one of the problems in Missouri is that, and look, it's always a battle, right, between what is considered fair taxation versus excessive taxation versus absolutely no taxation. If we had absolutely no taxation anywhere, anytime, we'd quickly probably descend into some form of unorganized anarchy. But Dave, isn't the problem in Missouri is we have too many taxing jurisdictions and too many special interests who carve themselves out of taxes that the working poor and the middle class end up shouldering.
That's absolutely true. We're right at the top. I think we're 6th in the country among states for special taxing districts, total units of government, and each have their own authority to tax and the like, and they're all searching for it. And as you guys, I think we're going to talk a little more as we go about, the special interests with so many taxing districts and so many small ones that don't get much coverage. It becomes easier for certain special interests to ask for exemptions, and that's what you're seeing work. This is where I am going to when I said I felt vindicated at the start of it. So somebody sent me a picture of the yard signs outside the polling places at Rockwood School District in far west, southwest St. Louis County, where you live, Tim. It's very similar to the mailings that have been going around, and they keep pushing that senior citizens are exempt from this tax and that they should vote for it because they don't have to pay it. I'm staring at I put this up on a mailing piece on my Twitter page at David C. Stokes earlier. And here's a yard sign at the polling place saying the senior tax freeze is a win-win with Prop S, saying how seniors can vote for it and help their schools and help their property values, but not have to pay the tax. And this is exactly what I predicted as one of the few people in the state actively opposing the senior property tax freezes around Missouri, that it's going to make it easier to pass new taxes, as you've now taken a significant part of the electorate and made them exempt from it. And that's exactly what makes it particularly infuriating is I know that these school districts have been opposed to that senior property tax freeze, and they're fine with that. I agree with them. But now they're sort of callously using that to pass their tax increase on everybody else, like you, Tim, because you're a little older than me, but you're not a senior citizen yet.
Not yet.
Not yet, a few more years. So that you can pay higher taxes should this pass. So it's just been so frustrating to see this campaign pass, taking bad public policy, the senior property tax freeze, and using it to make even worse public policy, which is this very, very, very large property tax increase in Rockwood School District.
David, Chesterfield sure has been in the news a lot for tax giveaways. They're not directly involved in this, but a manufacturer wants to build a $23 million headquarters in Chesterfield, and they're seeking St. Louis County subsidies. Last I checked, St. Louis County is practically broke. There's a huge budget deficit. The county can't afford this, can they?
Well, I don't think they can, but whether they can afford it or not, it's not right. And it's just the county executive page and the regional economic agency, which is supposed to be in charge of this stuff. And unfortunately, we'll see what the county council says. Yeah, you've got this Pure Tech company, which is expanding out in Chesterfield. And Chris, you were right to note that while it's in Chesterfield's not the one doing this. They want to grow there, and that's wonderful. That's great, but they're asking for, once again, a substantial property tax abatement, both personal and real property, and some sales tax exemptions, which are very common for these things. And they're all, they're making the same argument here about how, well, it's not going to reduce the taxes currently paid because it's just going to be a tax abatement on the expansion. And while there's likely truth to that, anytime you grow your economy but don't grow your tax base, you see exactly what you're seeing in Rockwood School District. And this may be in Rockwood School District, I think, which, you grow the economy, but you don't grow the tax base. So as the cost of government increases, as it almost always does, they're going to go back to the people who are responsible for paying the taxes and ask them for higher rates, whether it's a new use tax in Creve Coeur, which just last year passed an enormous, awful tax abatement for a big development at Worson and Olive, one of the richest parts of the Midwest. So the idea that you have to abate property there is preposterous. And yet they're now going for a use tax in Creve Coeur. And here in St. Louis County, they've got this new Pure Tech site. And I hope Pure Tech succeeds. I hope the owners get rich. But the idea that they deserve some special tax break that other businesses and people don't get is preposterous. And at the same time, you have this Gateway Studios, which got a similar ludicrous tax break from St. Louis County last year. They're having to go back to St. Louis County, hat in hand, asking for the county to change the law so that they can get their tax break because they're in a legal dispute with one of their contractors right now, which would have made their exemption improper. I say St. Louis County should take advantage of that and not give the abatement. I mean, if you have this money to give to some businesses, then you have money to give to all businesses and people, and we should be lowering tax rates for everybody, not seeing what you're seeing right now in Rockwood, which is the people that are still on the tax rolls are being hit with higher taxes should this vote pass, and it may not, but they're being hit with higher taxes, and the seniors who have the freeze, these businesses who have the lawyers to ask for these exemptions, they're getting tax exempt, but the average person, the middle-class taxpayer, is getting hammered, and it's just a completely and totally wrong way to go about economic growth in our community.
Yeah, David, this is a perfect example of what we talk about all the time, and that is the misplaced idea that government knows how to pick market winners and losers. This is a perfect example of centralized government planning that could end up failing, even if Pure Tech succeeds, and I hope they do. I don't know Pure Tech from a hole in the wall, but if they're building a $23 million headquarters, there's definitely some moneyed interest there, and I hope they do succeed. But when folks see that new $23 million headquarters, they're going to presume that PureTech is putting all this money back into the economy with the economic activity they're creating, but not if the government's having to pay PureTech to be there in the first place, right?
It is. And what I love your opening there, which might have been just coincidental. You say you don't know them from a hole in the wall, which is funny because I think they do like driving piles.
I think they do.
I think they like make like holes in the ground. So that's perfect segue. A sign of genius, Tim. Anyway, yeah, I hope they succeed. But that's what it all comes back to. I mean, you have to believe that county government, with all these subsidies for PureTech or Gateway Studios or Chesterfield, or I'm sorry, Wildwood, when they passed, also staying within Rockwood School District for now, Rockwood passing their giant tax abatement for their new city community center development a few months ago. You have to believe that politicians are able to predict the economic future of our region and say, this company deserves a tax break, this one doesn't, and it's just insane. And let me assure you that all of the academic studies of this going back decades and decades shows that they can't do that. But when you support the idea of economic development subsidies being granted, you really have to believe that bureaucrats and elected officials can predict the future and can do a better job of saying who gets what tax and who break and who doesn't than markets and customers and lenders and individuals. I mean, it's just insane when you finally look at it like that. But nonetheless, it continues unabated, pun intended, on and on. And it's really, it's to the point where if I was a taxpayer in Rockwood School District about to get hammered by a tax increase here, staring around at all these companies and developers and the like, and yes, I'll say seniors with their tax freezes, getting their own deals, I'd be livid.
David, I want to talk to you about this St. Louis Board of Aldermen. They have approved in limited instances the golf carts, on city streets. They have to be streets with 25 miles per or less. They have to have light. But I think this is just a crazy idea when you look what's happened in the last few years. We've had the volleyball player from out of state that was hit by that driver who was driving recklessly, lost both her legs. We had last year, a couple of years ago, the mother and daughter that were here attending a Drake concert from out of town. They both were killed because this driver was driving drunk and reckless. I got to tell you, from my own personal experience, when I'm driving in the city, especially in North St. Louis, I may have the green light, but at an intersection, I still slow down and look both ways to make sure some reckless car is not driving through the intersection. I think this is just absolutely nuts for the city of St. Louis to approve golf carts on the streets, even if they're supposed to be in only 25 mile per hour roads.
Well, I mean, I guess you would say that under current law, they were allowed, and this is an attempt to regulate them to some extent.
Okay.
As opposed to banning them completely from the streets, which would, since you can't have them on the sidewalks, that would essentially ban them completely from anywhere but a golf course, which, may be the appropriate spot for them, being they are golf carts. So that's the development. But the best criticism of it, which seemed to be similar to some of your criticism just there, was by Alderman Shane Cohn, who said, how do you possibly expect city police to enforce this? I mean, they don't have the police just by numbers. The average cop on the street wants to enforce the law, but they don't have the numbers to enforce the crime, the laws against the crimes that are happening, the violent crimes and the like. And now you're giving city police a whole new responsibility for slow-moving golf carts. So that was, I think, the best critique of it. But nonetheless, it passed. These particular regulations aren't, whether you think they should be stronger, and it sounds, Chris, that you think they should be, they're pretty normal regulations compared to what many of the suburbs in the area have passed, sort of reasonable limits on where they can go. And I think you should be able to drive a golf cart around a neighborhood street. We have plenty of them in our community of U City, although not nearly as many as you might see in Soulard and the Hill. But I think you should be able to take a sort of a souped up golf cart on neighborhood streets. But Alderman Cohn, I think he nailed it, though, giving one more sort of minor thing for cops to do when, especially in the city of St. Louis, they have 1,000 more important things to worry about. it's going to be interesting to see how this is enforced, if at all.
David, you drive a golf cart on Goodfellow and Natural Bridge?
I do not. I do not own a golf cart in St. Louis. I would not own.
I'm saying, would
I would
you?
not drive one.
Would
You're
you?
a good fellow and natural. No,
Okay.
I would not.
Thank you. All right, David, what's going on at the Show Me Institute? You guys have any guests or something that you want to draw our attention to?
We'll be releasing our blueprint here in a couple weeks. I forget the exact date, but it's up on the events page at showmeinstitute.org. This is our annual release of priorities we think that the legislature needs to be focused on to grow Missouri, to grow liberty in Missouri, to grow freedom in Missouri, and to grow the economy and school choice for all Missouri citizens and children. That's what the blueprint's on. Each year we had some big successes with it last year, with some things we've been pushing coming to fruition, such as the state banning source of income rules from municipalities and expanding the Most Scholars program. So we're trying to build on that, and we'll be releasing that blueprint in a public Zoom meeting for everybody to attend here in a couple weeks. Again, all the information at showmeinstitute.org.
And that is David Stokes, Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute, showmeinstitute.org, and on X, David C. Stokes. Don't get it confused.
So just
David C. Stokes.
Remember the listeners and voters out there, polls are open until 7 o'clock throughout many parts of the St. Louis region. So go on out and vote. You know, your vote counts more than ever. The lower the turnout, the more your vote counts. So go do it.
Amen.
Well, we get a public service message and all his wisdom too. Thank you so much, David.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Have a great day. 443, Chris's Corner. We're going to talk about Lauren Boebert and her very interesting Halloween costume last Friday that is causing quite a stir. I'll tell you about that when we come back on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL, #1 for live and local conservative talk.
I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head.
Follow us on Rumble at News Talk STL.
Standing on the front stoop, hanging out the window, watching all the cars go by, roaring as the breezes blow.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Not as chilly tonight, low down to 55 degrees, so a little milder in the morning and a mild afternoon. Sunny skies and a high of 69. Little breeze out of the northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Turns cooler in the evening. Temperatures will drop into the 50s pretty quickly Wednesday evening, and it's a little cooler but closer to normal for Thursday. Still mostly sunny, a low of 42 in the morning Thursday and a high of 64. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
News, analysis, opinion.
It almost seems common sense, but, alas, common sense isn't so common these days.
News Talk STL.
Don't put off all the cleaning up, sprucing up, and trimming up that you need to do in your yard before the good Lord and Mother Nature start ushering old man winter back into the heartland. Hanson's Tree Service, your one-stop shop for expert insured tree care. Hanson's provides a variety of services, tree care, of course, green resource recycling, grinding, land clearing. These are the experts, the big boys, the big toys that you want on your homestead or at your business. You don't want some fly-by-night operation. And good Lord, please do not get up on some ladder with a pole saw in one hand and a chainsaw in another. You're just asking for disaster. Get the experts at Hanson's out. They'll take care of all this lickety-split. I just used Chad and the gang to clean up an old stump in my backyard. I was able to take the tree down, but I don't have a stump grinder these days. So we did growing up. Dad had one growing. Or we had a log splitter, not a stump grinder. Those are special machines, and they're only to be operated by the experts. Well, Chad's gang came out and they cleaned everything up, lickety-split. In fact, they did such a great job. There's already grass now growing where that tree once stood. Don't worry. We planted plenty of other trees in its place. You can order mulch online at hansonstree.com. You can apply for a hassle-free estimate for any type of job that you need. No job too big or too small. You can apply for 6 months same as cash financing for approved customers. You can make payments for jobs already completed and so much more. The emergency service line, 636-379-1830, same as the business line. All of that is at hansonstree.com, where you can book your next appointment or tree inspection or anything else that your heart desires. Whether it is a commercial job, a ginormous one, whether it's just something for your beautiful little bungalow or something in between. Hanson's Tree Service, your one-stop shop with the experts that can provide the insured tree care that you need. And order some of that awesome organic mulch for the winter months and protect all of your annuals, your perennials and all the stuff you planted that you hope comes up next spring. The organic mulch will make sure it is so. Once again, go to hansonstree.com. That's hansonstree.com.
This December 13th, join Wreaths Across America at Belle Reve Gardens Cemetery as we remember the fallen, honor those who serve, and teach our children the value of freedom. Help us lay remembrance wreaths on the graves of our fallen heroes. Sponsor a wreath, volunteer, or bring your family to this meaningful tribute to our veterans, because every hero deserves to be remembered. Learn more and sponsor a wreath. Visit newstalkstl.com.
Hi, Sean Long from STL Fence Works, and I've got some great news for families thinking about adding a fence or deck. While other companies are struggling with delays and rising costs, our commitment to American-made materials is saving our customers money. Picture your kids playing safely in your perfectly fenced backyard or hosting friends on your beautiful new deck, all while knowing you got the best value for true American quality. Whether you're dreaming of a classic ornamental fence or low-maintenance vinyl, or maybe that custom deck that you've been considering, our American-made materials and expert craftsmanship deliver superior results at prices other companies simply cannot match. This really is the golden time for your backyard project, and we have flexible financing options to make it even easier. Your satisfaction is our passion, and that's a promise. Visit stlfenceworks.com. Let's lock in your savings and satisfaction today.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli, and my favorite sandwich from Capriati's is the Wagyu beef French dip. So good. It's the au jus that makes it. And the Wagyu beef is pretty good, too. I love Capriati's, and you will, too.
On Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
What do the results of the elections in New York City and Virginia and California mean to us, if anything? We're talking to Tony Kennett about that at 8:05 on Wednesday.
Morning starting at 5:30 on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps, driving the leftist crazy all afternoon.
Riding in the storm out, waiting for the thaw out, on a full moon night in the Rocky Mountain winter. I wind by the snow, watching for the snow. I've been thinking lately of what I'm missing in the city.
Zoran Mamdani blamed the president for bomb threats and intimidation at polling locations. I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Yeah, I saw those comments from Mamdani. I think they are completely irresponsible, and they are based on zero evidence. And I think this is just another example of how the Democrat Party unfortunately stands for nothing. All they stand against is President Donald Trump. And I think it's quite sad to see that we have someone at the top of the ticket on an election day today saying such things about the president when he obviously had absolutely nothing to do with those threats.
450 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. And Zoran Mamdani, I think, is an avowed anti-Semite. I think he blamed the president when he really wanted to say it was Jewish people that were calling in the bomb threats. That's probably what he wanted to say, but didn't want to jeopardize his election. Before we get into Chris's Corner, I've been watching the screen above you there, Tim. Apparently, there has been a plane crash at the Louisville airport. It's named after Muhammad Ali. Reports are saying that it is a UPS Airlines plane, but it's not been verified yet. It says a plane crash was reported near Muhammad Ali International Airport in Louisville. It caused a large fire and smoke in the area. Video showed massive smoke in the area as the blaze burned. And as I've been watching it through the course of the show, because it was such a big plume of smoke and fire there, I didn't think it was a private plane or a small Cessna or anything like that. that it was a large plane. Some of the other reports that I have seen that there are 13 people that are injured, possibly 20. Thank God there is no reports of deaths yet, but we will keep you updated on this as the show continues. There hasn't been a major airline crash in the United States in quite a while, thankfully. I'm sure, and we don't know yet, we're just speculating here, and we know how the Democrats like to exploit any type of situation. But don't be surprised, Tim, if we hear in the coming hours that the air traffic controllers not getting paid, being overworked, government shutdown may have had something to do with this. Not saying that it is, but I don't put it past these people to speculate like that.
Well, they're going to always blame Donald Trump. They'll probably continue to blame him when he's out of office in 2032. See what I did there? And if you remember, we had a unfortunate series of a rash of airline incidents at the beginning of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully that all died down. And of course, they blamed Donald Trump then, even though he had literally just taken office like a week before and suddenly everything was his fault.
Yeah.
But that's the way the lunatic left and the media operate.
So, of course, our thoughts and prayers go to the families of the victims. Hopefully, they are all alive at that plane crash in Louisville. And our thoughts and prayers go out to the people that are in Louisville. There were reports also that people within a 5-mile radius of that airport were told to shelter in place and not move. So we'll keep you updated about that during the show. It's time for the Corner.
Chris.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
I don't know if Lauren Boebert is just very tone deaf or this was a big FU to her critics, but last Friday night, Tim, Lauren Boebert and her boyfriend, Cal Percy, who's a real estate broker from Windsor, Colorado, attended a Halloween party in Loveland, Colorado, in costumes portraying a Mexican woman and an immigration and customs enforcement agent. The congresswoman was dressed in a traditional Mexican dress and wore a sombrero, while Percy wore an ice vest over fatigues. Okay, I guess I don't even know. I guess that's a big FU, or you're just that complete tone deaf. I don't know. CNN pollster says what other pollsters have been saying about the Democratic Party. He said, quote, "A total and complete garbage. The Democratic brand is in the basement." The Democrat brand, according to CNN's chief data analyst Harry Enton, is, quote, "in the basement," with multiple polls showing that Americans in near record numbers have an unfavorable view of the party and that no clear leader has emerged to potentially carry the Democrats through the next presidential election. Enton delivered the news during a Monday appearance on CNN News Central, where he spoke with anchor Kate Boudouin about the obvious issues plaguing the Democratic Party. Democrats at this point are historically divided. It is a complete and utter mess. It is messier than a hoarder's basement. Boy, that's pretty serious. What are we talking about here? And speaking of the Democrats and looking for their next leader, the next generation, Representative Nancy Pelosi will make an announcement on her future once California's redistricting ballot on November 4th is out of the way. Pelosi, of course, is 85 years old young and then under pressure from Dems to retire after nearly 4 decades in Congress. State Senator Scott Wiener, boy, what a name there, says he's no longer waiting for Nancy Pelosi to announce her intentions. He said, quote, "The world changes. I made a decision that makes sense for me to get into the race now because I'm passionate about San Francisco having the best possible representation." Well, we talked about this yesterday a little bit with Susie Moore of RedState.com about the apparent rise of anti-Semitism within the right. Heritage Foundation's president kind of stepped in it when he put out a video excoriating folks for canceling, potentially canceling Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. There's a report in National Review that says that his job may be on the line. The task force that was put together by Heritage Foundation to study anti-Semitism has basically told Kevin Roberts that he needs to renounce the video that he put out or he should resign. The Washington Post has received internal chats from high-ranking members of the Heritage Foundation They said privately how embarrassed and disgusted, quote unquote, they were by Roberts' ridiculous decision, quote unquote, to come to Carlson's defense over the sit down. One person wrote, "I'm disgusted by this and don't understand how this premeditated and orchestrated response could come out of one of the biggest think tanks in the world," one wrote. Another declared the incident was the most embarrassed I've ever been to be a Heritage employee. It's not close. I made this prediction here a couple of months ago. I'm still sticking to it. I think former Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey, will be the next FBI director. I think that's going to happen at the end of December or early in January. What bolsters that even more for me is that Kash Patel is under fire once again, under criticism. He took a government private jet over the weekend to go visit his girlfriend, who apparently is a country music star. Thought her name was in here. He went to go see her using a government jet. Now, for me personally, I think he can say this is justified. I mean, he's the FBI director. There are people that are threatening his life, would love to kill him. He can't take Southwest Airlines for a flight. So I think this is unneeded criticism. But, you know, when you're already kind of under fire, you got to watch every step. And I'm still making my prediction. He's going to be out. Andrew Bailey is going to be the new FBI director next year. That is Chris's Corner. Speaker Stump Speech, Tim.
Yeah, to follow up on that Harry Enton piece you cited, there is a huge piece out by a center-left think tank showing that left-wing ideas have wrecked the Democratic Party.
And then we'll talk about the REINS Act with Gary Hollis, State Director for AFP Missouri. Listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Is your portfolio prepared for the biggest risks facing investors today? Hi, it's Tim Jones. High inflation and a rapidly changing economy may impact your investments. If you haven't made appropriate changes, your portfolio may not be positioned to address some of the biggest risks in today's economy. That means it's time to request your free portfolio review from the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel. You can hear their latest views on the markets and investing during On the Money, hosted by Stifel financial advisors Bob Stockdale and Eric Robert, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on News Talk STL 101.9. They can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create a portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free portfolio review, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com, 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas & Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Fall rebates are here at Johnson Heating and Cooling. Save up to $600 off your new heating and cooling system. Plus, get a free humidifier when you purchase a complete system. And here's the best part. We're offering up to 0% financing for 60 months. That means you can stay comfortable all winter without breaking the bank. Don't forget our $99 furnace checkup. These incredible offers expire November 30th. Call 636-332-4141 or visit johnson-heatingandcooling.com.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Belfast, KNB.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Former Vice President Dick Cheney has died at the age of 84. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
Cheney served as vice president during both of George W. Bush's administrations and is viewed as one of the most influential and powerful number twos in White House history. Before becoming VP, Cheney had a long political career as a Republican in Washington, where he was a member of Congress, a White House chief of staff, and Secretary of Defense. His family says Cheney died Monday night due to complications of pneumonia and cardiac and vascular disease. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Once again today, the Senate failed to reopen the government and the shutdown continues. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says air travel delays are stacking up because of the federal government shutdown.
TSA checkpoint wait times ballooned past 3 hours at Houston's George Bush Intercontinental Airport, with some passengers enduring up to 5 hours in line. At nearby William P. Hobby Airport in Texas, security wait times are routinely exceeding 1 hour.
The New York City mayor's race pitting Zora Mamdani against Andrew Cuomo will determine whether the city elects its first Muslim mayor and its youngest leader in generations, or offers a comeback to a longtime politician who resigned as governor 4 years ago in disgrace. Curtis Lee was the Republican candidate. As of 3 p.m. Eastern Time, nearly 1.5 million people have voted in New York City's mayoral election. That, according to the city's Board of Elections. Other top contests in Tuesday's election includes a pair of races for governor in New Jersey and Virginia, and a ballot measure in California that Democrats are counting on for next year's elections to determine control of Congress. More at Town Hall.
Americans everywhere are on edge. The government shutdown has dragged on, and every day that passes, the markets grow more uncertain. When anxiety grips Wall Street, the first thing that takes the hit is your retirement savings, your IRA, your 401k. Everything you've worked for can suffer a loss of value virtually overnight. And now, with the Fed preparing another rate cut, precious metals are poised for dramatic gains in the coming weeks. That's why so many Americans are calling Advantage Gold at 800-741-GOLD to learn how to roll over a portion of their retirement funds into physical gold and silver. When paper assets crumble under government dysfunction and global tension, precious metals stand firm. Don't wait for the next market shock to erase what you've saved. Call Advantage Gold at 800-741-GOLD. Get your free gold kit now. It'll show you exactly how to secure your IRA or 401k with tangible assets. Call 800-741-4653 now. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-741-GOLD.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Not as chilly tonight, low down to 55 degrees, so a little milder in the morning and a mild afternoon. Sunny skies and a high of 69. Little breeze out of the northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Turns cooler in the evening. Temperatures will drop into the 50s pretty quickly Wednesday evening, and it's a little cooler but closer to normal for Thursday. Still mostly sunny, a low of 42 in the morning Thursday and a high of 64. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Discover little-known strategies that could be the difference between choosing the care you deserve or having someone else decide it for you. Get a free copy of Chris's book at serenityltc.com.
Looking for a hardware store that treats you like family? Welcome to True Value Schneider's Hardware, your local gem in Old Town St. Peters. For over 100 years, we're proudly serve you St. Charles County, providing everything from lawn and garden supplies to plumbing and electrical. Need a bolt or fastener? We've got you covered. And don't forget, we're a steel dealership. Whether you need sales, parts, or service, ask for Charlie or Jerry when you come in. We're here to help. Call 636-278-4461 or visit us online at truevalue.com/Schneiders.
Make this holiday season extra special with Anthony's Produce. Stock up on seasoned firewood for cozy nights by the fire. Order custom fruit and vegetable trays perfect for your Thanksgiving table. And don't forget about our hand-dipped chocolate-covered strawberries and beautiful fruit bouquets. Open 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. with pickup and delivery available. 701 Jungerman Road in St. Peters. Call 636-936-0496 or order online at anthonysproduce.com.
All the information I need on the drive to work.
Mike Ferguson in the morning. I keep it on throughout the day, whether it's local, national, or something big that's happening overseas.
News, analysis, and opinion.
St. Louis is #1 for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
This is home selling and buying season. We got the one-stop shop for you if you're in the real estate market or even just thinking about it, because these folks would be happy to talk to you, answering any questions you may have with no strings attached. That would, of course, be the Wallner Home Selling Team at Berkshire Hathaway. Rodney, Jen Wallner, and now featuring Jamie Allman. He's joined the crew over at the Wallner Home Selling Team. When you meet with the Wallners, if you agree to proceed with them, they're going to offer you a flexible commission plan tailored to your family's specific needs, not some cookie-cutter boilerplate model. It's going to be for what your personal situation requires. So many approved home buyers. The Wallners will guarantee to obtain you an offer husband and wife team, plus Jamie, giving you a unique family perspective, a trio of perspectives, not just that of one agent. That's priceless in and of itself. There's no obligation or any long-term commitment. If it becomes not a good time for you to sell your home, no questions asked. You can walk away, come back whenever it's good for you. They want you to be a happy camper and client. Finally, they're licensed in both Missouri and Illinois. Yeah, the Wallners can help you on both sides of the river. So many of us have friends, family members that have used the Wallners. Tony Colombo personally used the Wallners. They're wonderful people. I've spoken with them a million times over the last many years. They've been with us from the very beginning. They know more about real estate in this region of the country than anybody else I have run into. And that's why you should call the Wallners today for a free listing consultation and sell your home with this top producing real estate team at 314-810-SOLD. That's Rodney and Jen Wallner at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
Lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Today I'm here in Brooklyn in New York City on Brighton Beach, which is famously a Russian immigrant neighborhood. I want to ask them, what do they think of Mamdani's policies?
I already voted for Cuomo.
Cuomo, okay. Can I ask you why you voted for Cuomo?
Because I'm the Trump man.
You're a Trump man. Me too. Do you think that socialism, his socialist policies will be good for the city?
No, because I'm from Russia and I know what means socialism.
What does it mean? Do you think it's good or bad?
I think it's very bad.
Yeah, maybe New Yorkers should listen to the experts, the people that fled entire countries that were implementing things that Mamdani wants to implement now in New York City. Mamdani the commie, as he's been nicknamed, going to implement something here that has not worked at any other point in humanity, despite the fact that people, evil geniuses, it's hard to call these people smart, but there's such a thing as the evil genius. A lot of evil geniuses have tried to implement around the world on the world stage, and it's absolutely been an utter failure.
And you would think just good old-fashioned common sense that would have you know that all the free things that Mamdani is proposing, you're not going to be able to get that from the 1%ers that live in New York City. You may be able to fund whatever he's doing for a month or
few
two
minutes, yeah.
But I mean, something that you're going to sustain, and to think that these people are going to just sit there while you soak them and and stay in New York is just tells me you don't know much about human behavior.
I've talked to so many people who have immigrated to this country from communist or former communist socialist countries, and they just look at me with incredulity anytime the subject of Bernie Sanders, AOC and the Squad, Mamdani comes up, because they're like, what don't Americans understand about why we fled the places we left to come here? They always say to me, you all have everything here. Why would you want to seek to destroy it? That's what socialist and communist models do to nations. I've lived through it.
I think that's the mindset of these people, that they see all of the abundance of America and they say that we have ample enough resources to be able to give people free stuff. They don't understand the economics of and the human behavior, that if you take things away from people, they're not going to continue to let you do that. They're either not going to be as productive as they were before, they're going to leave. It's kind of a catch-22 that the abundance of America makes people think that you can give people things for free.
Yeah, if you mismanage it, as you mentioned, it runs out really fast. I have a very good friend in West Virginia. Her name is Patricia Rucker. She's a state senator there. She's a Venezuelan. She married an American. That's why her last name is Rucker. And she often tells me that Venezuela was once the most wealthy nation in South America. She said, literally the streets like paved in gold. We had more oil and natural gas revenues than we knew what to do with. But the minute the socialists came in and implemented their communist models and nationalized and took over entire industries, they began to bankrupt them all extremely swiftly. Other people's money runs out really fast when everyone suddenly realizes they don't need to really work that hard and they'll just get everything that everybody else has.
I think I saw a report last week that Venezuela has the highest known oil reserves in the Western hemisphere. And you couple the fact that, you want to institute a system of socialism, and you put on top of that these people are corrupt as well, and they're going to steal whatever revenue you have. That's just a bad mix of, and just a recipe for disaster.
So I feel so sorry for folks like that Russian immigrant there who literally fled a system of government that now is going to possibly be pushed down upon him. He may be looking to move to Florida or Texas or even Missouri. And I think you're going to see a flood of people out that know exactly what communism looks like. Because you have New
He's
York,
a democratic socialist, Tim.
democratic socialist, difference without a distinction, as they would say. And they've witnessed those forms of government and they know what's going to happen. So I truly believe that look, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the out-migration that's already existed in New York State over the last 20 years is likely now going to accelerate. And what we hope is, and this is more of an upstream from politics thing, what we hope is that most of the country, even though we have more socialists running for office now than ever before, right? There's somebody running for mayor in Seattle, in Minneapolis. You've got Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders used to be the only one, right, who would proudly wear the socialist signature literally on his sleeve. And now you have more people. You hope that these are anomalies and that this is just a momentary foray into something that's ultimately going to be disproven as ineffective and not a trend, right? Because if it's a trend, then we've got bigger problems and the country is literally going in the wrong way, like most of Western Europe did until it took Western Europe 60 years to realize the error of their ways. And only now are some countries in Europe starting to swing back towards the right.
And unfortunately, we're not seeing what we used to see, that when you're young and idealistic, you're very socialist. You think that resources should be allocated, quote unquote, fairly. But as you get a career and you have a family, you realize that system does not work and you become more conservative. But we're not seeing that now. These people have been endowed from kindergarten through college with socialist philosophy, and they're adhering to it still. Even as they get careers and have families, they still think that it can work.
Mm-hmm. Well, our hope does definitely lie with the youngest generations who have witnessed a lot of this carnage and hopefully moving away from it. That will be a little further examined in today's Speaker Stump Speech. And then at 5:25, we're gonna welcome back into the show Gary Hollis, State Director for Americans for Prosperity, Missouri. AFPMO, like many other grassroots groups here in the state of Missouri, is looking forward to legislative pre-filing, which begins on December 1st, and then the legislative session, which begins January 7th. Chris, that's barely 2 months away. And then you and I and the rest of the gang will be back up in Jefferson City under the Capitol Dome for the first day of the 2026 General Assembly.
And I got to tell you something that I really beginning to enjoy. I think this will be our 4th year in a row of doing this. The only thing I hate is that at the end of the show that we have to walk through that wind tunnel where it's like minus 20 degrees, it feels like, to get to your car and go back to St. Louis. But other than that, it's always an exciting time to be up there at the beginning of the session. And there's a lot of hope for good legislation to pass. It doesn't always do that. And it's always nice to see our friends.
For sure. Well, maybe they'll buy the bag of tricks up in New York City, but hopefully the nation is starting to learn a thing or two about how bad today's left-wing liberal ideas are. That is the subject of today's Speaker Stump Speech.
Listen to me, listen to me.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
It's time for the Speaker's Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
Fewer voters are buying the snake oil of the silly socialists. That's the subject of today's Speaker Stump Speech. The The economic periodical, sorry, I was trying to figure out what this was. Semaphore, the economic periodic Semaphore, recently had a major report that a liberal-leaning think tank put out. So this did not come from Fox News or Newsmax. It did not come from the Cato Institute or Heritage or the National Review. This came from the group called Welcome. Now, they always have those inviting words, don't they, these liberal progressives, to mask what they really stand for. The group Welcome, Semaphore reports, consulted hundreds of thousands of voters over the last 6 months. Okay, so this group did the post-mortem that the Democratic Party still hasn't done. The Democratic Party still wandering around going, why did we lose? You know, Joe Biden was a young, vibrant man. Kamala Harris ran a great 100-day tenor. It wasn't Joe's fault. It wasn't Kamala's fault. Man, what did we do so wrong? Well, I'm glad to see that someone on the left is engaging in some sort of soul searching, although they might learn something from this, which I would be concerned about, although I don't know that they can turn away from their leftward lurch at this point. So anyway, they consulted hundreds of thousands of voters over the last 6 months and issued some very broad findings, including one that stated 70% of voters think the Democratic Party is out of touch. Most voters, the group found, believe the party over private. Now, I know you all are not going to be surprised about this, but they over prioritize issues like protecting the rights of LGBTQ plus Americans, fighting for climate change, while not caring at all about real world issues such as securing the southern border or lowering the rate of crime. Welcome, by the way, began as a political action committee back in 2022. Now it proceeds as a nonprofit with the same name for political research. And as I mentioned, they do have a liberal bent. Elected Democrats have received copies of Welcome's report. We'll see if they read them, followed by actual events in D.C. and New York to explain the findings in sort of a seminar type fashion conference. The report urges Democrats to abandon their progressive language about race and abortion and the LGBTQ aforementioned issues that Democrats began using after the 2012 election, so for the last 13 plus years, and recommends the nomination of more candidates willing to vote with Republicans in a bipartisan fashion on conservative-leaning immigration and crime bills. Former Illinois Representative Sherry Bustos said, the Democratic Party better listen to this for the good of our nation. She actually ran the House Campaign Committee when it lost seats in 2020. She has endorsed the report. Inspired by the Politics of Evasion, an influential 1989 paper that inspired the Democrats' more centrist shift under Bill Clinton, the 70-page Deciding to Win document put forth by Welcome argues that Democrats must be willing to break with unpopular party orthodoxies. Sounds like John Fetterman may have already read this thing. Its prescription for getting the party out of its current wilderness isn't simple, though. Avoidance of both a pivot to corporate crony centrism and the pursuit of progressive ideological purity. Greg Schultz, who managed Joe Biden's 2020 primary campaign but was replaced for the general election, worked with Welcome to shape the report. So some big-time Democrats involved with this soul-searching. For the last 20 years, Democrats have misunderstood how you actually win elections. Greg said, I thought Biden had proven in the 2020 primary that the base of the Democratic Party, this is funny, is a 58-year-old woman without a college degree. But when you hear people in D.C. say the base, they're referring to white intellectuals that live in just a few coastal, extremely liberal progressive cities. The report directly challenges Democrats' predilection for the interests of highly educated and affluent voters, arguing their influence may actually be responsible for the party's closer association with far left-wing politics. Just ask AOC, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, the former Congresswoman Cori Bush, and Mondami. Deciding to Win grew out of discussions centrist Democrats had last December after their loss to President Trump and a rush of panicky tales about what the party did wrong. While embarking on its long-term polling project, the group consulted an array of Democrats, including other Biden White House folks and former congressional staffers. It felt like there had been a real lack of reckoning among what actually happened. I think I just said that in the beginning of some speech. Said Simon Bazelian, the principal author of the report. A lot of what we're arguing for is a return to Obama era positioning on issues like immigration and crime, and prioritizing the economy over the more base level cultural issues. The report doesn't necessarily urge Democrats to move fully to the right, reserving vocal praise for some progressive stars in the party with a more direct appeal to economic opportunity and lower cost of living. This is interesting. They say we have much to learn from the relentless focus of Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Zoran Mandami on those fronts, the authors write. The risk they see in Democrats moving left on other progressive policies, especially of the cultural aspect, which even some in the party establishment have done while criticizing Mandami and other Democratic socialists. From 2013 to 2024, so a period of a little over 10 years, between the beginning of Obama's second term and the end of Biden's sole term, the report offers clear metrics to show how the party changed its language and gave support to far left-wing bills that had very little chance of passage in dysfunctional D.C. The report goes on to examine a variety of things where the party has been determined to be too liberal versus other issues, such as those economic ones that seem to drive more progressive voters to the polls and not turn off voters in general, while maintaining room for disagreement in the party writ large. Finally, we'll get to the conclusion here. Welcome's response is to all of the different optimism. Welcome's response to the optimism about these midterm elections is don't get too cocky. Democrats' newer coalition is wealthier, more educated, and turns out far more easily than the MAGA coalition. But in the meantime, it keeps losing ground with less affluent voters. And, this is a danger sign for Democrats, with rank and file union members who increasingly see Democrats as cultural elites who look down on them and want to replace their jobs. Culturally conservative voters are also correct. Democrats have moved far to the left over the last several elections. The best way for that bloc to not be distracted by right-leaning coverage of a reparations bill might be for fewer Democrats to endorse it. Bernie Sanders focused heavily on those economic issues while avoiding a lot of the more hot-button cultural ones. That's how he talked for much of his career before the Democratic Party's leftward move, when he embraced an immigration plan that would have decriminalized illegal border crossings. He seems, Sanders does now, to have moved back to where he was originally on Trump's signature issue. All of this is in flux. All of it's in play. There's definitely a civil war going on within the Democratic Party for the soul of where they should go next. But ultimately, Welcome seems to suggest, as we often talk about in every election cycle, it's the economy, stupid, and maybe leave the cultural issues for the white liberals in the elitist think tanks. And that's the Speaker's stump speech for today.
They'd be wise to heed that advice, but I wouldn't hold my breath.
And I hope they don't. I mean, because when you read this, you're like, okay, yeah, that's what happened, and this is what they should probably do. But I hope they don't, because Democrats back in the day used to be really good at wordsmithing things and convincing people to basically give up their taxpayer dollars in the hopes that the government will just handle everything. And if they get back to that clever incrementalism, it's always a much tougher battle for Republicans.
Yeah, and they are far past the time of incrementalism. They want it all or now, or all or nothing now.
Time for Republicans to take heed and note of that and strike. All right, when we come back, what's going to happen in the next legislative session, and how might it affect your family's kitchen table issues and their pocketbooks? We're going to talk to Gary Hollis, State Director of Americans for Prosperity, Missouri, about all of that and more on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Like and subscribe to us on Rumble. News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Not as chilly tonight. Low down to 55 degrees, so a little milder in the morning. and a mild afternoon. Sunny skies and a high of 69. Little breeze out of the northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Turns cooler in the evening. Temperatures will drop into the 50s pretty quickly Wednesday evening, and it's a little cooler but closer to normal for Thursday. Still mostly sunny, a low of 42 in the morning Thursday and a high of 64. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
Love the all-new News Talk STL app.
On my way to work in the morning.
Usually I'm in the car.
I listen on the app in my car every morning going to work.
Download the News Talk STL app and listen anytime, anywhere.
I was just out at Tyler Trineri yesterday, and they took great care of me. Not because I'm their spokesperson, but because I've been a loyal customer for over 10 years. Been going to Tyler Trineri, which you can find online at tylertrineri.com for a long time for all of my service needs for my Jeep Grand Cherokee. Tyler Trineri, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram is an excellent place to shop for a brand new vehicle or a great deal on a great deal on a used one. And that is because Tyler Trineri has something that no one else in the region has. I don't even know if anyone else in the state of Missouri has. Probably not. That's why people travel from all over the state to Tyler Trineri. That is the coveted lifetime warranty. Every new vehicle, every Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram sold by Tyler Trineri to you comes with that stem to stern lifetime warranty. There's no limit on the mileage you put on the car or how long you own it. Yeah, I did not stutter and I did not misspeak. That is a true benefit, an exclusive one that you can get only at Tyler Trineri. It also applies to select used vehicles as well. And as I mentioned, a service department second to none. Love working with Bailey and Annalisa. They take such good care of me. They take care of everything. I'm in there a lot when it's crowded. There's a lot of people going. Those ladies really, they run that service department like no other I've ever seen. They always take care of everything the first time. They took care of me yesterday, and the Jeep is back running smooth as silk. For the best price, selection, and the amazing lifetime warranty, I would urge you to please check out Tyler Trineri today. Located right off of Interstate 44 in beautiful Pacific, Missouri, online at tylertrineri.com. That's tylertrineri.com.
Attention St. Charles, looking for a local spot that satisfies all your cravings? Mario's Donut Restaurant is your place to go for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. From mouth-watering sandwiches and omelets to delicious gyros, Mexican dishes, salads, and wraps, we've got it all. And don't forget our famous donuts. They're so good, they'll make your eyes glaze over. Dine in or carry out, our friendly staff is ready to serve you with love and care. Mention News Talk STL when you visit. Call 636-447-4515 or visit mariosdonutrestaurant.com.
Jamie Allman here for O'Fallon Family Floors. Experience the passion. Oh, yeah. You can go in and see the best variety, the best pricing, the best quality, the best personalized service right there off of Highway K in O'Fallon, or you can have the store come to you. Oh, yeah. Brian and his team take great pride in running a fantastic flooring outlet, and you can get their 5-star ratings right there on Google. Just check it out. It's O'Fallon Family Floors, O'FallonFamilyFloors.com.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Cold late nights so long ago when I was not so strong. Good man came to me, never seen eyes so blue. You know I could not run away, it seemed. We'd seen each other in a dream. Seemed like he knew me, he looked right through me.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Come on, girl, he said with a smile. You don't have to love me yet, let's get high a while. But try to understand, try to understand. Try to understand. I'm a magic man.
Zoran Mamdani blamed the president for bomb threats and intimidation at polling locations. I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Yeah, I saw those comments from Mamdani. I think they are completely irresponsible and they are based on zero evidence. And I think this is just another example of how the Democrat Party unfortunately stands for nothing. All they stand against is President Donald Trump. And I think it's quite sad to see that we have someone at the top of the ticket on an election day today saying such things about the president when he obviously had absolutely nothing to do with those threats.
Well, the opposite of prosperity would be electing socialist office, but apparently that's what they're going to do in New York City.
Yeah. Before we get to our guests in Virginia, I put a picture out. The guy that's running for Attorney General, Jason Mayares, he had a picture with another guy saying, this guy split his ticket. You can too. Talk about throwing your running mate under the bus.
I don't know what that's all about, other than I heard from some folks in Virginia that he was the one that originally wanted to run for governor.
Yeah.
So maybe he's thinking that Winsome didn't do a very good job.
Wow.
But why do you do that in public?
Yeah.
Come on, Republicans.
That's throwing her under the bus and backing it up and running over her again.
Be better. And you never know. She could win. It's not. We'll see how.
Would you bet the farm on
count
that?
the votes? I will not, but weirder things have happened.
That's true.
Weirder. In 2016, the New York Times, which does a lot of things wrong, but one thing they do right is that election night tracker, 98% chance that Hillary Clinton was going to win the 2016 election.
That's true. I remember that.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden the tide turned. Could the tide turn tonight? We don't know. Once all the lawmakers, though, are seated, we'll get back into the legislative session. That'll be here in Missouri before we know it. So to preview that and talk about some of their priorities, we have Gary Hollis on the line with us, State Director at Americans for Prosperity, Missouri. Gary, welcome back to the program.
Hey, good evening, Tim and Chris. Thanks for having me on. How are y'all doing?
Fantastic.
Doing good. So, Gary, I know that you were here in Missouri for your inaugural year last year as the new state director for AFP Missouri. Gary, I think it's always great to get an outsider's perspective. You'll be an insider before you know it, and like me, you'll be called a creature of the swamp. Of course, that's just how it goes. But from the 35,000-foot level, Gary, what is Missouri, in your opinion, doing right, and what could we improve upon?
I think it's a really exciting time to be in Missouri because we could potentially be on the cusp of doing some great conservative things that some other states have already done, such as eliminating the income tax, such as expanding universal school choice so that parents across Missouri have the final say in where their kid goes to school, and other forms of tax reform, like getting rid of some of these ludicrous personal property taxes and property tax hikes that are putting people out of their homes. We could do some really great things here in Missouri, and it's exciting to be a part of it, but that's going to require getting the right people next year to be able to do that.
Gary, explain to us exactly what is the REINS Act and what is at stake for our state if the REINS Act passes?
Yes, so the REINS Act is one of the bills we were championing last year, and the most simple way to describe the REINS Act is it says that the people who are elected to run the government should be the ones who do. Currently, you have bureaucrats that were never elected, never voted on by anyone, that make major regulations that impact the state and they impact small businesses. And so what the REINS Act would do would return the decision-making back to your local elected official that was elected, and they would have the final say in costly regulations.
Mm-hmm. Speaking to Gary Hollis of Americans for Prosperity, AFP Mo, AFPMissouri.com. Gary, you mentioned personal property tax. I don't know if that's something that you had no idea what that doesn't exist in a lot of states, right, Gary? And how silly is it? For those of us who are in Missouri, it's like one of the most hated taxes, but we just pay it like clockwork every year because it always comes in the mail on December 1st. But Gary, how insane is it to pay a repeating annual tax on a depreciating asset that you already bought many years prior?
Oh, it's absolutely insane. I had never heard of it until I moved to Missouri. I came from Florida and I'd also lived in Ohio for a time, and we didn't have personal property taxes. So to hear that at the driver's license place was quite shocking, and started looking into it. And you're right, it is crazy. It's devastating for seniors who you're seeing inflation through the roof, and they're living on fixed incomes, and they have to continue paying for a car that they essentially will never own year after year, while their tangible their property also goes up on their real property. And it's devastating for families that are trying to make ends meet with the rising cost of groceries. I got a bill for $560 just for my one car. So if you're a family that you have teenagers driving. Now you might have 4 or 5 cars in the family. I don't know how anyone affords that.
Gary, how does the REINS Act make the regulatory process more transparent for everyday Missourians?
Well, I don't know necessarily that it makes it more transparent, but other than it puts the eyes of your elected representatives get to see it, so that it's not done quietly behind the scenes where nobody sees it, nobody really even knows what is going on. It has another set of eyes. The whole legislature has to sign off on some of these costly regulations, and theoretically, if we're voting for the right people and putting the right people in office, they're going to represent you in that process.
Yeah, and Gary, and there was an interesting kind of kerfluffle with that last year. You know, usually if bills, usually the biggest hurdle in Missouri that as you've learned, is with our state Senate because of the filibuster power. But last year, I believe Senator Travis Fitzwater was the main sponsor of that, and he had a lot of help from folks like Senator Nick Schroer and others. And I think the bill either got out of or was going to get out of the Senate, no problem. But there were some real issues, I think, on the House side for whatever reason. Do you think you can iron those out this year and pass something that seems to be extremely commonsensical?
It is very commonsensical, and it's very popular when it's polled. It's about a 75% issue that should be bipartisan, and in fact, it was bipartisan when we finally got it out of the House Doge Committee at the end of last year. Some very far-left Democrats even joined some of the most conservative Republicans in bringing it out of the committee. So we are hopeful that since it got out of committee last year, that it'll get some more attention this year, and we would love to get it to a floor vote in the House. We had 33 co-sponsors in the House. We think we're going to have more this year. That was more than any other bill. So we're very hopeful for next session.
Gary, critics of the REINS Act say it's simply Congress taking back authority it already has under the Constitution. How would you address that?
Well, right now the authority is not being given to them. These regulations are being done by bureaucrats who are not elected by anyone, and they have a cost to business owners in Missouri. So I think it's just restoring the way things should be and writing it into law.
Gary, as you mentioned, by the way, folks, we're speaking to Gary Hollis, State Director at Americans for Prosperity, AFPmissouri.com, AFP Missouri on Twitter X. Gary, you mentioned that there's a lot of room to roam for Republicans and just for believers in free markets and liberty, peace, and prosperity here in the state of Missouri. And we've removed a lot of the impediments and things that had been in the legislative pipeline for many years. And as you referred to, I hear, along with you, I'm sure, a lot of legislators talking about what they want to do next year in the issue of taxation and education. I believe AFP Missouri is going to make tax cuts and tax reform, whether it's involving real estate, personal property, or income tax, one of their top priorities next year. And I think you're already ramping up efforts on that, right, as we head towards the legislative session. Tell us about those.
Yes, absolutely. We're still talking to folks in the legislature about their plan to get to 0% income tax next year that Governor Kehoe has been championing and others in the legislature. So we're hopeful that a real plan will come out, and that's something that we can get done next year. But we also hear the cries of people around the state. They're livid about the cost of property taxes on their homes, and they're livid about the cost of personal property taxes. And I think you can do tangible things in each of those categories. We have conservative supermajorities in both chambers. We have a conservative governor. There's no reason we can't act on all of those fronts and give relief to Missouri taxpayers.
I'm here on your Twitter site, and of course, last Friday was Halloween, and Kent Strang posted that Ghostbusters is the greatest free market film of all time. Why is that?
It's definitely a classic. One of my favorites. Good memories from my childhood watching that, and it seems to have caught on with a new generation as well.
Gary, education has been one of the toughest stumbling blocks here in Missouri. You wouldn't think it would be with a conservative supermajority, but there's not only two sides of this issue. It seems like there's 20 sides to the education reform, school choice, parental rights debate every single year. There's supporters of it on both sides of the aisle. There's detractors and critics of it. on both sides of the aisle as well. But but despite all that, Gary, as you know, we have made strides in Missouri on passing an Education Savings Account Act bill. Last year, Governor Kehoe, one of his top priorities was to fund that ESA program to the tune of $50 million. And all around us, Gary, there's been multiple states that have gone full bore universal school choice. Is that something that AFP sees is ripe for the pushing here in Missouri as well?
Yes, Governor Kehoe has been a strong champion of school choice. He deserves a great amount of credit for putting that $50 million in the budget for most scholars last year. We're hopeful that within the next year or two, we can start moving toward universal school choice in Missouri. The parents in Missouri should have the final say in where their children go to school, period. And that is and should always be the conservative position. It's the position of President Trump. He said now's the time for school choice in America. And it's time for school choice all across every state, particularly a state that has a Republican supermajority. We have no excuse not to have universal school choice, and we have to get that done.
Gary, before we let you go, despite all the public policy matters that we discussed, I know that AFP Missouri also has a political operation as well. If folks are interested in the candidates that you're all going to be helping and supporting, or want more information on that, or want to get involved in the process, where would you direct people to go?
Yes, go to our website, which is afpmissouri.com. If you click on our events page, there's several events coming up in your area. We're doing a personal property tax event in the St. Louis area with Representative Richard West on November 10th, and you can sign up there. And we're doing all sorts of events around the state. So please go to our website and also follow us on social media to keep up with what we're doing.
Excellent. Checking it out right now. AFP, there it is, afpmissouri.com. That's afpmissouri.com. Gary Hollis, State Director for AFP Missouri. Gary, great speaking with you. I know bill filing begins a few weeks away, and you're going to be right back at it. We'll touch base with you once the legislative session is in full stride.
Thank you, Gary.
Looking forward to it. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you as well. All right. That is Gary Hollis of AFP Mo. We have one segment left, and it's going to be a jam-packed one. Chris, you mentioned Paramount earlier in the program.
Yes, the new conservative network that owns CBS, they have thrown Jon Stewart a bone, and I'll tell you, I gave it away a little bit. I'll tell you what that is.
I'm curious to hear what Jon Stewart will be up to.
And also, too, I'm kind of pissed about last night's game. Not because Dallas lost. I'll tell you the reason why I'm pissed.
Okay. All right. That unpacking Monday Night Football, Paramount, Jon Stewart, and Larry Connors USA. All that is next in our final jam-packed segment here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Like us on Facebook at News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Not as chilly tonight, low down to 55 degrees, so a little milder in the morning and a mild afternoon. Sunny skies and a high of 69. Little breeze out of the northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Turns cooler in the evening. Temperatures will drop into the 50s pretty quickly Wednesday evening. And it's a little cooler, but closer to normal for Thursday. Still mostly sunny, a low of 42 in the morning Thursday and a high of 64. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
The man who created the great game show, The Bee or Not the Bee. I hate him because he thought of it before me. Paul Kurtman will join us Wednesday at 9:25.
Weekday mornings at 9
on News Talk STL.
I don't need a bank with a skyscraper in New York or a call center overseas. I need a bank that knows St. Louis streets, St. Louis families, and St. Louis dreams. That's why Royal Banks delivers real community banking backed by decades of trust and local commitment. Because at the end of the day, banking isn't just about dollars. It's about relationships. It's about sitting across from someone who understands our community because they're part of it. Someone who doesn't just see an account, they see your goals, your business, your family, your future. And that's why I've been banking with Royal Banks of Missouri for over 20 years. You know, Royal Banks has been serving our region for more than 60 years. And they just reaffirmed that commitment with a brand new headquarters in University City, right there at Olive and McKnight, bringing their home base back to where it all began. And they're not just rooted here, they're thriving here. In September, Royal Banks was named the 23rd fastest growing private company in St. Louis and the fastest growing bank at the 2025 St. Louis Business Journal Fast 50 Awards. 16 locations across St. Louis, St. Charles, Illinois, even in Northeast Missouri. They're still locally owned, still independent, still community strong. Visit today, royalbanksofmo.com, royalbanksofmo.com, Royal Banks of Missouri, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go and pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-515-2397. 800-515-2397. That's 800-515-2397.
Concerned about the condition of your windows driving up your energy bills? I was too. It's only called STL Windows and Doors. Their Provia windows combine old world craftsmanship the professional way, the Provia way, with over 65 years of combined experience, locally owned, offering competitive pricing and personalized service that the big box companies can't match. Call today for your free in-home estimate and start saving tomorrow. 314-277-5952 or stlwindowsanddoors.com.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Well, a major acquisition of Tylenol's parent company, Huggies maker Kimberly-Clark, is set to buy Tylenol's parent company, Kenvue, in a nearly $50 billion deal. That's a big one. What do we know about this acquisition, friend?
We know it's expected to close end of 2026, the back half of 2026. Of course, shareholders as well as the government will still have to review, especially something of this magnitude and so many different brands coming together.
547 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arp show. As we all know, Tylenol was originally owned by Johnson & Johnson. They spun the Tylenol brand off into a new company, Kenvue. And with all of the scrutiny that Tylenol is facing right now, boy, how lucky they are to have dumped this company onto Kimberly-Clark. I would think it would be very, very difficult for them to find a buyer with all the scrutiny that Tylenol is having. Kimberly-Clark, the big toilet tissue maker, has bought them, Tim. I think a lot of the investors of Kimberly-Clark are thinking the same way that I am on this, because when they announced this sale or this buying of Tylenol, their stock was down 14%.
Yeah, I've used Tylenol off and on my whole life.
Even when you were pregnant?
No, and not unlike the lab rats, I don't take it by the bushel load, right? I think everything in moderation. I don't know much about this sale other than it was probably very timely for the seller, given the national news that came out just a few weeks ago.
I mean, this is the equivalent to me of Bayer selling Roundup to some other company with all of the potential liability that Tylenol may face, even though a lot of the studies are saying that it's safe. But I'm just amazed that a company, they're taking a huge risk that this is not going to affect the bottom line too much. So Tylenol, what a Johnson & Johnson, Kenvue, whatever, what a good deal for them.
And it's really hard. It's really hard to damage a good that's used by the greater part of the country unless something really, 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 really bad happens to it and everybody pays attention. Like what happened to Bud Light, right? Nobody said Bud Light was bad for you or anything, but they hired the wrong spokes thing, with the Dylan Mulvaney disaster. And that harmed, Bud Light before Dylan Mulvaney was I didn't care for it much.
I didn't either, really.
But for a lot of people, it was the go-to beer, right? Especially at sporting events or golf tournaments or a poolside or whatever. It was just the thing. It was the natural thing people went and bought. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Same thing with Tylenol, right? You got a headache, blah, blah, blah. Tylenol almost is like Kleenex, right? It's like ubiquitous for painkiller, right? And it has been hurt. And I don't know if things can come back from that. Bud Light still has not come back from that. Can Tylenol come back from certain folks in the White House administration suggesting that it may be harmful and may have something to do with autism.
I got to tell you, I would not count Tylenol out,
Right.
only because you and I are old enough to remember in 1982 when someone was spiking Tylenol with cyanide.
Yes.
And it was almost to the point where, like, no one is ever going to buy Tylenol anymore. They are done. They need to just take it off the shelves and scrap it to the dustbin of history. But they came up with a great marketing plan. They made it very safe. They put the wrapping around it so that you couldn't get a hold of the pills and spike them. But Tylenol, that has to be one of the greatest corporate product comebacks ever, because if you were alive and kicking during that time, I mean, you were just afraid to go to any store and buy medicine because you're like, some person they spiked Tylenol. And I'm just wondering, I don't remember, Tim, did they ever catch the person that did this? I don't think they ever caught the person that did this.
I don't think they did. If they did, it was so long ago, I don't remember. And you know what's probably going to happen? A year or so from now, when the dust settles on the whole Tylenol autism connection, and some report, a new study, a new report's going to come out, and is probably going to clarify the things that were said about Tylenol. If it ties it closer to negative side effects, then Tylenol may be done for. But if the report says, okay, here's what really is the deal here, and here's who should use it, and here's who shouldn't use it, and so on and so forth, then it will likely survive. Because you know how it is. 1 year, coffee is the worst thing you can drink. The next year, it's the best thing you can drink to prevent heart disease and brain tumors. I'm just making stuff up, right? Same thing with a lot of the things that have become ubiquitous in our society. Chocolate is good for you. Chocolate is bad for you. Red wine is great. Red wine's horrible. I mean, eggs. So something will probably come out more likely than not that will rebuild Tylenol's reputation.
Those who listen to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show know that you and I are both huge Dallas Cowboys fans. My parents grew up in East Texas. I was indoctrinated as a Dallas Cowboy fan very early. Kind of an up and down season right now. Tim, you and I could gain 100 yards on the Dallas Cowboys defense. That's just how bad they are. They have a very explosive offense. But, you can't win 41, 48 games every single week. You need some type of defense. So yesterday, Cowboys are playing on Monday night. It's always a big deal. Monday Night Football. It's kind of like a Super Bowl during the weekday. All excited to go home, not get my Bud Light out of the refrigerator and watch the game. And that's when I realized, Tim, we cut the cord and we use YouTube for our streaming service to watch TV. YouTube is in a dispute with ESPN and ABC. And so I'm searching all around to try to find the game and couldn't watch it last night.
No way.
Yes.
All right.
YouTube and ABC, we're having a YouTube a feud with Google or with YouTube on the fees that they should pay.
So you can't watch ESPN and the related networks on YouTube. I can't watch FanDuel Midwest on Hulu. Chris, you can't win for losing these days, because if you because I've been thinking about that. I mean, like, maybe I should, the thing is, once you get used to your streaming service, you don't want to change it, right? They got you.
And I don't understand it anyway.
Well, Becky handles it for you, and I can figure it out, but it takes several hours. Then you have to restructure everything. You got to do all the logins again. You got to put it on all the televisions. I just don't want to deal with that. I just want to watch St. Louis Cardinals and Blues games, and I can't do it on Hulu. Now, you can't watch certain games on YouTube. It's like, can't we have a network that just provides everything?
I haven't watched a Cardinals baseball game in probably 3 years because I refuse to pay to watch a product that's on the field that's absolutely horrible, and just haven't had any interest. I'm not going to spend the money to stream it. My wife, as she was trying to find a game yesterday, she said, well, we can get the NFL ticket. They're discounting it, and we'll be able to watch the game. And I was like, it's not that serious to sign up for NFL ticket, get a discount rate on it so I can watch one game. It's not that serious.
It's another $14.95 or $19.95 a month. I've looked into this. I know what the deal is, and it's just so aggravating. And you know what? I almost bit the bullet this year because I heard the Blues were going to have a decent team. Well, they've lost 6 of their last 7, so maybe I'm not missing much.
What's happened to them, Tim? I mean, I'm not a big hockey fan, but I know at the beginning of the season they won like 3 games in a row, or like 4-1 or 3-1 or something, and they've had a 6-game losing streak that they just snapped like last week. What's happened to them?
Joe, you following the Blue Note at all this year, or do you have any clue?
I just click on the score each night to see what it is. But I think the problem is they're standing on knives on ice, and it's just so slippery.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Wow.
Street hockey was way easier when I played it as a kid.
Gotcha.
Tell me this: the Blues goalie who was there for
Bennington?
Yeah, is he still with the team?
I believe so. Is Jordan Bennington? Yeah, he's still. Yeah, they have a backup that's probably going to eventually take over, a younger guy, but who's also pretty good.
Well, Bennington's not that old, is he?
Oh, he's been around for, in sports, man. You don't have to be too old anymore.
True.
Honestly, I don't. You know what? We haven't had on in forever is Nate Lucas. Our sports guy who doesn't often do sports because he comes on the political show here, but he can talk sports. I honestly don't know what the deal is. Nate's a big hockey fan, and he probably knows. I don't know if it's defense. I don't know if it's offense. I don't know if it's goaltending. Yeah. I don't know if it's just general suckiness. I'm not sure what's plaguing the Blues at this early point in the season.
Would you say that, when Blues won the Stanley Cup, they had a pretty good team, but I ultimately believe that the reason they went all the way is because they had that young girl that was suffering from an illness, and I think she willed them into the Stanley Cup and to win that. I think they were just running on so much adrenaline and were trying to win that for her that any team that was facing them didn't really have a chance. Were they really the best team in hockey, would you say, back then?
I don't know.
That year?
Well, there was some destiny and some righteousness there, perhaps, at work. But on paper, it was one of these deals where, yes, they had excellent players at that time. They who have gone off to other teams and been marquee stars. But, Chris, if you remember, at the end of the year, they were in last place in the division. And then the song Gloria comes in, and then the young lady that they were playing their games for, it all kind of came together like an aligning of the planets, and they took off like a meteor and never looked back, and they won the cup.
You just reminded me of something. My wife was the president of this local IT group, and I was emceeing an event where we had the owner of the Blues. We had like a fireside chat with him and talked to him. It was that year, and they were in last place at that time, doing terrible. And it was kind of weird looking back on that. I was like, man, I remember interviewing him and sitting with him when the Blues suck, and now they won the absolute Stanley Cup. Absolutely unbelievable.
Amazing comeback.
All right, Larry Connor's USA is up next. The hate from the left, it's just not radical, but deadly. And a new feature on the Larry Connor Show. And today's story behind the story, burglary ring inside police headquarters. You've got to be kidding me. That is definitely a St. Louis story for something like that to happen. Thank you for listening. You've been listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. Drive safe and have a great evening.
Rhino Shield is engineered to outlast paint, formulated to outsmart the elements. Rain or shine, sleet or snow, mold or mildew. Our home exterior coatings intelligently designed to stand up to Mother Nature. Call 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com.
Salute the savings at Country Mart this Veterans Day with our 3-day sale November 7th through 9th. Stock up on family pack ground beef, just $3.99 a pound. Quench your thirst with assorted Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, or 7-Up products. 6-pack, 16.9-ounce bottles, 3 for $10. Plus, Smithfield bacon, only $3.48.